said of the 89 souls lost, only 2 have been identified, or that's of the recent?
So of the 89, so realize this, we when we find these, our family and our friends, the remains we're finding is through a fire that melted metal. We have to do rapid DNA to identify them. Every one of these 89 are John and Jane Does. And so when you are asking us, and we know we've got to get, and I love the way our House representative, how she said it, she was so eloquent. We know we've got to go quick, but we got to do it right. So when we pick up the remains and they fall apart, and so when you have 200 people running through the scene yesterday, and some of you, that's what you're stepping on.
Welcome to Alex Sass Show, and here we are talking about Hawaiian fire. And of course, we had to cover it because, we covered the fires before here in Canada, and we broke it down to you why it's happening here and actually all over the world. And Canada's still burning. Fearless leader Justin Trudeau came on Twitter shortly after the Hawaiian fires, and he had to remind Canadians that Canada is still burning and that we're still being welcomed into a climate change scenario with 15-minute cities. And we're going to prove you the case that's what's happening in Hawaii. And by the way, you just watched the police chief of Hawaii, of Maui, who was actually in charge of Las Vegas shooting. So is this guy a master cover-up? By the way, you just watched the master class in gaslighting. You know what gaslighting is? He turned on journalists and said, that's your fault we can identify people because you walked all over the corpses. Right, so it's not his fault that they couldn't prevent people from burning. It's your fault that they couldn't. Welcome to Alex Sass Show here at the Glen Zone, and we'll be back after this. Welcome to Alex Sass Show here at the Glen Zone with Glenn Herring and honorable guest Andre Cadorette. Thank you guys for being here. And once again, we're meeting not under the best circumstances. We don't really want to be talking about people dying and being discarded for the purposes of globalists achieving their agenda. This is really, it's also, I find this to be a sort of sacrifice as well. Andre, wouldn't you think that?
Yeah, we're starting to see more and more of these, and sacrificing the environment, sacrificing human beings, or capitalizing on these things happening for them to be able to save in and be our saviors. It's getting frustrating.
Well, right off the bat, let me ask you this question. What do you think that happened? I mean, I have a whole bunch of videos I'm going to show and different evidences of people right there from Hawaii, from Lahaina and Maui, from the island of Maui, testifying to what has happened to them. What do you think has happened?
I don't know. My spectrum of discernment, I have from one angle is the coincidence theorist, which is this mainstream narrative. And then on the other end of the spectrum is my conspiracy theorist and just the players involved and the modus operandi and these fires and the way they burnt and the way that sadly the water was out, the electricity was out, the siren system was out, yet what's in is the guy that helped cover up the Las Vegas shootings, which is kind of evident to anybody that's into ballistic forensics, that the story we got from Las Vegas and the rapid fire coming out of there and the official story was totally bunk. So that this guy stepping into the picture at this point and explaining to us, and not even explaining to us as you just showed in the video, just gaslighting people into blaming the victims or the people from the community instead of answering all the shortfalls I just named that were into the scope of all bureaucrats, including this guy. So as far as what really happened, there's so many good, interesting stories coming out. We'll never really know the truth. Direct energy weapons was there pre-knowledge and spraying to ignite that. All the celebrities that own compounds and acres of land that were left untouched. And, the fact that they already had in the works their 15-minute city program and just their whole philosophy as far as where they wanted to take Maui. But again, this belongs to the bureaucrats. None of this were the locals. And at the end of the day, I hate saying that, I keep saying that, but they're the ones that are paying the price. And it's just really sad. Again, when there's death tolls involved, it seems to irk me and frustrate me and anger me more than when they're just burning acres of our forests and are messing with our environment.
But also, that's really, I think you just covered the whole show. We can go home at this point. But,
wasn't my intention. We just got here.
Just got here. But that's really what the episode is going to be about. Glenn, like, why do you think that happened actually in Hawaii? Because Hawaii is, my theory is, it is a democratic stronghold, right? So they had all the elements there for a long time. And if you talk to locals, and we have a whole bunch of videos to show, the locals spoke about this for a long time, that they were trying to, not play ball with the powers to be with the globalists, specifically regarding the 15-minute cities. And, and Hawaii is the state that always votes Democrat, because I think also because of the large military base there, the naval bases specifically, that has something to do with this. What's the connection there, Glenn?
Well, a little bit of history. Maui is just Hawaii is a big vacation. It's a tourism industry area. That island itself, that's 80% of the economy of that island is tourism. There's 165,000 yearly residents who live there. Okay, and in 2022, the total of 2022, there was 2.9 million visitors to that one island.
Wow!
So that's a tourist hotspot right there. Hotspot. It was a hotspot before the fire. And that could be a reason why there was the fire, because Lahaina is an indigenous part of the island where, let's say, a lot of people without the higher end means were living. And it could be the globalist ideology and the big tour operators and, of course, the building contractors to have a different agenda, different idea about building up the coastline more to increase revenues. So it looks like a lot of this could have been done purposely to burn down. And of course, it's government trying to cover their own arses, their corruption, and incapable of operating things properly, especially when you really need them. So it's coming out, and this is what we're going to do on the show. We're going to prove to a lot of people that things like this nature don't just happen out of the blue like that. It's engineered again.
Perfect point. Thank you for all this information, statistics, and which there's no way I would have known without you doing your research, Glenn. Thank you for that. Well, I'm glad you pointed out that, they actually always tell you what they're going to do, what they've done, and what they're about to do. They always do. And we covered on this show the reasons why they're doing this. So we have a governor here of Maui or Hawaii that actually speaks about, sort of in conjunction to what we just had the police chief tell you about. The fire was so strong that melted through steel. My question is to the chief of police is, why don't they just look for passport to identify dead people? Because that's what happened during 9/11. The fire melted steel and the buildings collapsed, but the passport survived, and that's how we identified the terrorists. Why don't they use the same technique? That's a downfall. But here's the governor of Hawaii.
Of the destruction of Lahaina, it does appear like a bomb and fire went on. It does appear like a bomb and fire went on. All of those buildings virtually are going to have to be rebuilt. It will be a new Lahaina in its own image, its own values. But it's going to be billions of dollars. We are so coordinated with state, county, and federal support that it took less than a quarter of a day, 6 hours, to get the approval from the president to bring those resources in. This was, of course...
Andre, which one of these parts is BS? What you just said.
It's all BS. Like from Katrina,
how quickly they got approved, right? Oh, we're going to rebuild it all. Here's the funding.
How convenient, or what a coincidence, or how wonderful. And like we mentioned before, everything was lacking pre that caused this, and then post as far as the relief, emergency relief. But yet the bureaucracy, the paperwork is all stamped and ready to go. And it's been a couple of weeks now, people making the correlation with some of these Black Lives Matter riots and them raising down neighborhoods. And here was BlackRock ready to build right on these, And again, same thing with Katrina, with gentrification of these lower class citizens that lost their property, their homes, their livelihoods. And then the buildup was ready to go. And again, we knew from Katrina that could have been saved a lot more than they did with the levees, with the warnings, with the emergency rescue efforts. And then here we go again with the stamps are ready, but everything else was lacking.
2,700 buildings are down. So that's a lot of territory. That's a lot of rebuilding. There's a lot of money to be made. And there's a lot of people losing whatever wealth they had. And at the beginning of the video, you had breaking news where they said so far 89 people were confirmed to be dead. Then the broken news, because they're so slow, and there's people who are living down there who are well over 600 people accounted for that are dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a disconnect between the reality, the real on-the-ground reality, and what we watch through the mainstream media.
Well, you guys know, okay, so we can talk about the particle beam weapon, right, and all that stuff, and there's some videos of that, which we can't, I don't think it's real till somebody shows me a different angle, etc. Plus, in the age of CGI, it's really hard to prove. But without walking to conspiracy, and you can check it out for yourself. There's a screen grab right here. I'm going to show it to you of a book that came out on Amazon on the 10th of August. It's about fires in Maui, Fire and Fury, and it actually lists fires and description of that book from that started on August 8th and finished on August 11th, the day before the book was released. Now, I went to research this, and I looked into the website, Amazon, and the book was no longer there. You can still find it in the search engine, and you can look for yourself. If you put Fire and the Fury, the story of 2023 Maui fire, and you click on any links, you can click Amazon.ca or Amazon.com, and it takes you to an empty page. So since then, that did make the round of news. It made the legacy media news, and the book has been taken down. So people are paying attention. So the difference between now and 9/11, maybe 20 years of, people slowly waking up to a different level. Andre, you think we definitely live in a different? Is that a definition of ascension that we're all talking about, the fifth dimensional ascension, etc.?
I think we're definitely more aware, and this is the equivalency of the tower building 7 and BBC prior to it being pulled. Again, their words used, not ours. We're reporting that it was already done, and here we have this book that was published and already was packaged, ready to go. But with everything that we're talking about on your show, as far as predictive programming and them needing to release the agenda, and I want to get my hands on that. I want to read it. I want to get a PDF version. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but I'll be happy to report back once I get. I'm dying to know the contents of that book and what from dimensional beings that we are. I'm sure this has a lot more ramifications than I could attest to right now, because I haven't read it. But same old MO.
Well,
a couple of weeks ago, the same thing was going on in the vacation island of Rhodes in Greece. Prime real estate, prime, that was not used for to generate what it's supposed to. 45 buildings were all perished, all waterfront properties. And already they're in there, they're bulldozing, and there's a bunch of high-rise, high-end hotels supposed to come there, and also some private, huge mansions supposed to be built. So, it's almost like that was a warm-up for the big one here in Hawaii.
Well, now we got Kelowna up here in Canada. So this feels and smells like the cases, that's first it was the pandemic, and then calculating that, and then when there's no deaths, what did they start reporting on? Well, then it was just the cases that they scared people with, and now we're having a bunch of cases of climate crisis in front of us that they'll be using to push through and ram through legislation, order out of chaos, and just
That's Kelowna burning, by the way. That looks pretty bad. Actually, there's a video.
Situation unfolding here in West Kelowna, anywhere north of Highway 97, up toward Wilson's Landing, along West Side Road on the western side of Okanagan Lake. This fire is quickly running down toward the lake. If you're in the area, you got to get out right now. It's an emergency situation with this fire front rapidly moving downslope toward Lake Okanagan.
So I have another video which I didn't post it here, but apparently the fire is so strong, and you saw it in the previous videos where the person was describing how the fire jumped the ocean. Somehow it's so strong that it goes through the surface. Apparently the fire jumped the lake. Kelowna is a pretty big lake there, right? Yeah. It's a humongous lake. I don't know if you've ever been. And Kelowna is basically like Hawaii of Canada, right? Would you describe that? It's like considered to be one of the nicest areas to live in. It's high above the sea level. It has a really nice climate, and temperate, not too humid. The oxygen levels are still prevalent, and it's a very nice, expensive, right? It's one of the most expensive areas to live in.
It's a beautiful vacation spot in Canada, and there's other places in Canada that are, burn, 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 my heart's on fire. There's Yellowknife, where there's 20,000 residents now have been ordered to evacuate, to leave the city because the fires are getting close to that. But see, on the media now, everything is about the fires. It's fires here, fires there. Every year there's all kinds of fires. Just to give you a little bit of context, right now in the state of Texas, there's 235 wildfires burning right now. California, it's always been a hot spot. There's 49 fires burning. Washington, 27, and Oregon, 17. So every year we have fires, but the media now is really focusing on the fires because it's all our fault. Like you were talking about gaslighting before. So we got to pay for that. And how are we going to pay for that?
Carbon tax.
That's right.
Wow.
Just ironically so. And it's not like we don't even have timber to fuel our fires when it comes to conspiracy theories. Everybody was witnessing the explosion in Lebanon a couple of years back and how devastating that was. That substance was 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that was seized at the port, that exploded, that we all witnessed, that just blew up in Lebanon. And nobody's talking about the actual fact that we went 61,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate went missing a couple of months back. And here at the same time that this goes missing, that's a huge fire accelerator, and we're having all these fires at a record amounts, just coincidentally, again, without getting into knowing what's what, just the coincidences of all these things happening in months apart from one another. And I'm thinking we're going to see a lot more of this. So we don't need to wonder how can this be, or where can this be fueled from? We have a tangible, physical stolen material that's used for these purposes that we're not batting an eye on, when there's no follow-ups, there's no investigation. This should have been, as far as they could have went with terrorists, maybe seized this. Who else would be interested in stealing this? What would they do with it?
Well, yeah, we actually covered it on an episode here. Were you here for this?
I don't think so.
No, you don't think so. But we did 2 episodes specifically on that, and one of them covered specifically what you just talked about. So we did our own investigation, and apparently the fires, the orange fires in New York and New Jersey, they didn't last. The orange smoke didn't last as long because there was a rain. So I don't know if there was some kind of mess up on their part, or just nature prevailed and saved the day. But when the water reacted with the orange fire, it created this white powdery substance that came down with the rain, and it was filmed. We showed an episode. You can actually go with those episodes on YouTube, Rumble, and maybe Odyssey. You can watch that. Those are actually popular episodes of Alex Ash Show. And there's evidence of that, actually, what you're describing, that has happened. And most likely that's what happened. But you're right, the ashering, and okay, so don't let the good opportunity go to waste. What does the government do? Podesta. We talk about Podesta in a second. Listen to him.
To stop these disasters from getting even worse, we have to cut the carbon pollution that's driving the climate crisis. And that's what the Inflation Reduction Act is all about.
So they are reading from exact same book. Playbook is all this other World Economic Forum leaders, right? So that's what Justin said, and what he did right away. By the way, the gas got really expensive after those shows that we did. Not because we did the shows, but because, that's how you save the planet, by increasing the carbon tax, right? And okay, question to you, Andre. Podesta, this whole UFO or what do they call it now? Not the UFO.
UAPs.
UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, right? And Podesta was he's the Clinton guy, right?
Yep.
He's a Democrat. He was the one that pushing for the release of UFO files, and he was saying, well, if Hillary gets elected, she'll be the one to release the files. I don't believe this. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. This is all gaslighting. This guy is just a political guy, and he's playing to a base. He's trying to get maybe 5% of votes of people who are actually interested in the UFO subject, and that's what it is. That's how I feel. Like he's just
whatever he's involved in, whatever he touches, this guy, history, and his brother, I think, is the one that's even more
pedophile.
Yeah, he's a convicted pedophile.
Apparently.
That's alleged. That hasn't been.
The little McCain girl, apparently, they were involved in that. They have pictures that look very similar to both of them. It's bizarre.
Their name keeps coming back up on so many different things. And these career bureaucrats, I'm telling you, there's something. I have disdain for just people that actually believe it's their duty or their mandate to serve the public and try to make a career out. Do like the rest of us and go in the private field. Try to help your brothers and sisters by being productive, creative, tangibly offering a service that in a free market where people could opt into buying what you're selling. These people are doing it with the boot on their neck. They're doing it by holding mandates over us. They're doing it for political gains. They're doing it for their own wealth, their own furthering of their political aspirations and career goals. They just shouldn't exist. I shouldn't see that creepy face.
How can you call a political? I think political career in itself is oxymoronic, right? How can you have a career in a political calling, right? Political calling should be like a spiritual calling in a sense. You're serving, right? Service, I think, associated with something spiritual, like doing something for something else, not looking in for your own interest. Most of the people that do enter politics and they are successful at it become uber rich. Just look at the length of the service is so extensive, and longer they serve, more money they make, right? When the salary is actually limited. And that's the problem I see with this whole thing, like the whole service part.
Well, yeah, it comes back, and as far as my studies for ascension and transcendence and the need to serve others, and you serve yourself through serving others, and you serve others through serving yourself. The whole concept of make sure you're healthy, you're well, you're able, put your oxygen mask on prior to attempting to do everybody else's. And these people that are claiming to just they should be like 6 books in of popularity of pop culture. I shouldn't need to want to look at his face and punch him in his face. I should adore him because of his literary works, his philosophies on life, the tangible lives that he himself has changed, not through the U.S. government, or they're the ones that are propagating this ideology of this socialism and communism where people are not taking responsibility for themselves or actually genuinely believe that it's up to government to make society better and make themselves better and relying on them. And there's this whole Manchurian syndrome by proxy. It's an actual, it's a diagnosis or it's a critique, or if you look that up, and it's literally, it's creating sickness in people or alluding to them that they need you, that you need them. They're putting themselves into the equation, making you believe that you're sick, that you're not enough, that you need their assistance, you need their help. And it's really weird to see these people hit superstardom with career long ambitions of being politicians and making millions of dollars in the process. It's the opposite of my angle of service to others, like in what I want to provide to others. And it's the reason why we love celebrities. We love musicians. They make us feel things. They make us live things. It's the reason why we appreciate the person that comes and does the renovations, that does the paint. We can't do something. We need other people. I got no problem paying for that and allowing them to live through my need for them. And these people just keep creating needs, these fake needs and these crises or these insecurities. They need you to feel like shit. They need you to feel like you're not capable. They need you to feel small. They need to make you feel vulnerable, scared, afraid. They need to coerce you to make you move in their direction.
So it's breaking my heart right now because this one topic is all up in my feed, and if I know social media, I know algorithms, and I know that sometimes it's not in the people's algorithms that need to hear it most. And I'm not saying it's you, but I could use your help to help the algorithm for the people that need to hear it. You know, some of us be preaching to the choir over here, and I know that when people come in like this,
She brings the good point. Even shows like ours, unless you share it directly, most people not going to get it because they don't want this information out. They don't want the red pills, Glenn. This doesn't serve them the purpose. Okay, let's keep
When you're red pilled, now you have your power back. You're more aware what's going on, and then you can help other people get red pilled to the reality of what's really going. That's what they don't want. They have a complete fear of that. This is why they, like you were saying, Andre, they keep fear mongering. They're controlling people through their perception of false realities and through the emotion of fear.
Okay, let's keep watching this.
it's the masses like us that hold them accountable that maybe will spark change. And so my topic is for the people of Maui who, instead of being able to just grieve, being able to process what's going on, being able to be there for their mental health, being able to locate the still yet missing people, being able to even return back to Lahaina and figure out the damage done. Some of them get adrenaline still rushing through their bodies. They don't even know the damage that's physically done to them while trying to escape. Instead, what they gotta worry about right now, and put all of the rest aside, is these people coming in and trying to buy up their land. It just happened, and people are trying to come in and be land vultures. I'm not even kidding, guys. You think
Land
that
vultures.
this
I like that.
is mental, but this is actually happening.
Yeah, and that's what that's the videos we showed you about, right? So the governor of did we show the governor talking about how they're going to come in and rebuild the land now, building 15-minute cities?
The perpetual, what do they call it? The vigil?
Yeah,
Not a
the
vigil,
yeah.
or perpetual, whatever whatever they called it.
So there's a lot more testimonies that we can play all day, actually. And
Same thing that happened in California through years of droughts, which they're saying was geoengineered, caused purposely. It created a lot of farmers to either go bankrupt or else sell their property, their huge, vast land, for pennies on the dollar to the uber rich people, the Bill Gateses of the world. And then when enough of them had transferred, they said, okay, we could turn the water back on. You know, we could stop drying out everything. And now look, now they're producing huge profits for these multi-conglomerate corporations.
Somebody's trying to get an emotion out of you, a reaction out of you using a short-term emotion. For me personally, doing the shadow work and recognizing that where I used to mess up a lot on was I'd make long-term decision based on short-term emotions. And then you can't help but start noticing the people around you trying to evoke these short-term emotions out of you that seem to lead you back into the pattern of committing to these long-term decisions. And that's what these events cause. They cause a short-term emergency. These people are not feeling well. They're not emotionally at their stable state. They're not reflected. They're not calm. And then they're offering them these bullshit solutions that are indebting them, or that 6 months from now when the person comes back down and recenters, like, what did I do? Why did I give up my land? Well, 3 million sounded good, but there's no price for that. That was my peace. That was my home. That was my generational house. Or just be weary of that, you know? And that's what government seems to be doing. Every time now they're getting people moving is by creating the short-term jerk in them.
Especially when your neighbor got $5 million for his property.
Well, you know, yeah.
And then 6 months later, it's worth that much more. So.
okay, let's have a few more videos before we cut the show.
They know how powerful we all are together. And if everybody knew what really happened, and if we all stood up against it, it's done. Especially as islanders, do you know how unified we all are? We're a unit. I'm going to share the photo, but did y'all know that they shut the water off?
That part.
They shut all the water off. So some people, I seen a video saying like, oh, this smart man used the water hose to fight off the fire from his house. Everybody tried. The water was off. Mm-hmm. Not only that, all the children were home because school was canceled that day. They were all home, and the parents weren't there to evacuate them. Y'all, please pause.
That's fucking horrible.
Sources sent me. The locals are already traumatized with enough to deal with, but as the truth comes out, we can share it and put a stop to the evil and the narrative.
That's horrible.
Put out.
And brothers and sisters, the next show is on 15-minute cities specifically associated with what's happening in Hawaii. They actually come out and tell you how they're going to save you. They are the solution makers, the solution bringers, but they forget to tell you they're actually the crisis makers. So they create a crisis and then they come up with a solution. Remember the COVID? Oh, it's just the exact same playbook. The same playbook with the terrorists. They create and fund the terrorists, and then we're going to resolve it by creating really long line at the airports, and we're going to do all the cavity searches, and you can't travel the way you used to, just, for your own safety. We're going to take away your freedom. And that was the beginning of 15-minute cities. But let me just not forget that, people like Oprah came on the eve of the fire, and they bought out like 700 some acres, or maybe not, how much was it, for very cheap, or 870 check. Hold on, I have a video here. 870 acres she bought for $6.6 million in Hawaii. That's pretty cheap, Glenn.
Steal. And you know what? You were saying, Andrew, you were saying too about, the government and the people want them to save them. There's a hell of a difference between saving them and enslaving them. So they should wake up to realize what's really going on.
Well, and you cannot, you're actually absolutely right, Glenn. You cannot rely on government saving you, because there's a whole bunch of videos that we have where they actually block the roads, the sirens didn't go off, and people complaining about that. The kids, I have videos here, but I'm not going to play it, but you can go look for it yourself. Kids was sent home that day. Because schools were closed, and that's how a lot of them died. If they stayed in the school, maybe it was a different story, because those schools apparently didn't burn. So they did want to sacrifice the children. So there's some kind of devil worshiping thing going on. Andre, any closing words?
Yeah, unfortunately, we only know so little as far as what's actually transpiring, the energy harnessing, these human sacrifices and these rituals. And the average simpleton is just falling for the narrative and the legacy media. But lucky for us, we have the interwebs, and we're still able to share these videos. And that's why I find it's not an irony that these people over there are just begging for that. Just share the information. Look at them. We're a unit. They're not wondering what's they know what's trans. I'm here trying to convince the rest of the people. So I appreciate you. I appreciate to the depth of the spectrum that you go to as far as the potentiality of what's actually transpiring around us. And hopefully that wakes up more people to recognize the possibilities and how wide the spectrum is of these events.
And speaking of people actually never give up. People will always, the people are survivors. So look, we have videos here of people actually, because the roads are closed, people still found the way around because they live on an island. They bring all the help via the ocean.
It's a good thing that you see, no matter what happens, how bad, how evil, the good in humanity, we get together and we always find a way to minimize the damage. And we maximize the potentiality, again, of uniting together. The good is coming back up. It's going to bring the bad down. I know everybody's been watching the news and they see, the bad is winning, There is more good in the world, and it's going to start showing itself. And it's up to the individual to find that good God particle inside of them and not to be the effect of all the negative. You become a product of your environment only if you allow it. You don't resist it, but you create the vision in your mind of the way you want the environment to be. If everybody does that, then the environment becomes that way. It is the way to be.
So the reason I come back here is it's important what you just said, Glenn, and I appreciate you closing on a white pill. And because if we just go dark, deep, and we believe, if that, it was that case, it'd be game over. So I believe in looshing. I believe in energies. I believe in various stuff. So finishing that way for me is awesome. I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys. And it's good what you're doing. And finishing off on a white pill like that, it's the case. I agree with it 100%. So much appreciated.
We're going to win, brother. Yeah. We are winning.
Thank you, Andre and Glenn, for being such contributors to the show. I couldn't do without you. But brothers and sisters, tune in to the next one where we're going to cover 15-minute cities and World Economic Forum agenda that's been already planned for places like Hawaii and Canada specifically. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.